The clock is running out. At any moment, a military strike could ignite a conflict that freezes the global economy. The catalyst is an ultimatum from President Donald Trump, demanding that Iran reopen critical maritime straits immediately. The threat is specific. If the demands aren't met, the U.S. military will target Iranian infrastructure, deliberately singling out power plants and bridges for destruction. President Trump bypassed traditional diplomatic channels, broadcasting a message filled with explicit insults. This public display aligns with the madman theory, a strategy of appearing purposefully unpredictable to force an adversary's hand. Watching a sitting U.S. president issue raw, public threats of destruction has put the international community on high alert. A localized dispute is rapidly escalating into an immediate global crisis. The initial warning gave Iran exactly 48 hours to comply, setting up a military strike for early Monday morning. But the schedule shifted. The deadline was abruptly pushed back 24 hours, moving the potential strike window to Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Iran responded with public mockery, telling the U.S. they couldn't comply because they, quote, lost the keys to the Strait under a flower pot. While the main strike was paused, physical attacks continued. A targeted strike hit Tehran's Sharif University, an institution often compared to MIT, specifically designed to cripple Iran's engineering and aerospace research sector. With rhetoric peaking and high-value research centers being struck, the sudden 24-hour delay to the primary military deadline stands out as a glaring anomaly. The true stakes of the conflict become clear once that Tuesday night deadline expires. This satellite image shows the Strait of Hormuz. It connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea, and it is the single most critical choke point for the planet's oil supply. Because Iran currently controls access to this water and has demonstrated a willingness to target commercial vessels, oil tankers have largely stopped navigating through it. The risk of highly flammable cargo being struck is simply too high. Control the Strait of Hormuz, and you dictate the availability and price of energy across the globe. If the U.S. attacks, Iran has promised to expand the blockade to a second location, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, located between Yemen and the Horn of Africa. Iran doesn't need its own navy to do this. They rely on armed Houthi militia stationed along the Yemeni coastline to fire on passing ships. Blocking Bab el-Mandeb cuts off access to the Red Sea. Cargo ships can no longer reach the Suez Canal, the primary shipping artery connecting Asia to Europe. Without the Suez Canal, commercial fleets have only one alternative. They have to sail all the way south, looping around the tip of Africa at the Cape of Good Hope. This map tracks that detour. Rerouting around Africa adds an extra 3,000 nautical miles to every journey. That translates to an additional 9 to 11 days of travel time per ship. A military strike on Iranian soil guarantees this retaliation, severely disrupting at least 10% of all international trade in a matter of days. Beyond the economic consequences, the military escalation involves a much larger existential threat. After a long absence from public view, Iranian leader Mojtaba Khamenei was recently filmed inside a command center. He was shown actively reviewing plans for a direct strike on an Israeli target. Pictured here is the Dimona facility. It is a highly restricted nuclear reactor complex isolated deep inside the Negev desert. Simultaneously, international watchdogs are raising alarms. Rafael Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, has warned about what Iran is doing inside its borders. While Iran's uranium enrichment was previously reported at 60%, the IAEA suspects they are pushing towards 70%. Under the cover of this conflict, it would not take long for them to reach the 90% threshold required for weapons-grade nuclear material. The regional dispute over maritime trade has accelerated into a dual-sided nuclear standoff, with both nations positioning their most sensitive assets as leverage. With global trade and nuclear stability on the line, the decision to pause the U.S. strike clock for exactly 24 hours points toward a hidden layer of the conflict. The delay wasn't a sign of hesitation. It was a calculated window of time given to allow backdoor diplomacy to work before the bombs fall. A coalition of international mediators, led heavily by Pakistan and supported by Turkey and Egypt, are working the back channels. They are frantically trying to negotiate a 45-day ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. In diplomatic circles, the proposed framework is being called the Islamabad Accord. The explicit language and public insults serve a dual purpose. They put maximum pressure on the opposition, while simultaneously buying time for these silent negotiators to finalize a deal. Right now, the geopolitical board is frozen. We are watching a countdown clock that has been artificially paused by a very fragile coalition of mediators. While the daily news cycle is consumed by social media posts and aggressive crosstving, the actual mechanics of the crisis are playing out behind closed doors. The quiet, high-stakes race to secure global trade lanes and nuclear stability is happening beneath the noise of the public deadline.